Gopi Jana Bala Ba Girivana Dari Jasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parabhajakacharya Asatara Saptashi Srimat His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Glories of Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Ganandana Sarakaya Chakshulanmidatam Jaina Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Vanchakalpatarubhishchakritva sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So yeah, this will be my last class in the morning. I have class in the evening, Sunday Feast program. I hope you'll all be there this evening. And it looks like Russian devotees are asking me to do a program tomorrow evening. So I think I'll be doing that as well. So, Srila Prabhupada, I was thinking, and Prabhu also yesterday was talking about attentiveness a little bit. And I was thinking what I could speak about today. So many things, actually, so little time here in Toronto. But even as I was speaking yesterday afternoon to all the people that came yesterday, how everything is coming from Srila Prabhupada, everything we do. And I was realizing how, and Prabhupada speaks about that, the person Bhagavata. Where were we talking? You were talking about that just yesterday in the second canto. So many wonderful verses, huh? One after another, and Srila Prabhupada's purports. And we can see person Bhagavat so very important because he shows you, he shows you by his example, Acharya, what to do. What's there in the Bhagavatam, he's exhibiting the symptoms of how we follow in that way. But Prabhupada also had, like I say, as I was saying yesterday, what I appreciated, one of the things I appreciated most Srila Prabhupada was his sense of humor. That's what captivated me. How he was so happy and joyful and make jokes, laughing. Once it was 1970, and Srila Prabhupada was in Vrindavan, Mathura, and he was on the train. If any of you, those of you who have been fortunate enough or unfortunate enough to be on a train in India, it's an experience. I've done it recently, just last year. I went from Vrindavan to Ujjain 1 or 2 years ago. Anyway, it was always an amazing experience. But Prabhupada, of course, he traveled on trains so often. We know even as a child, right? He said he would look at the train schedule to see when the trains were going from Calcutta to Puri, to go to Puri Rath Yatra. So he was looking at that time. But now it's 1970, he has his disciples, and of course Prabhupada knew everything about Vrindavan, Mathura. He lived there for so many years. I remember once, it was Kartik, 1972. So that was, I had been with Prabhupada 1 month, practically, when he went to Vrindavan for the entire month of Kartik, 1972. And for me, it was my first time out of the US. So we crossed, he went west, he went to Thailand, and then wound up there in Vrindavan. Anyway, I wanted to say about the train. Prabhupada's on the train, and he has his disciple with him. In Vrindavan, Prabhupada would go on the morning walks then during Kartik, and Vrindavan was very the same but very different. Huh? It seemed like village then. Prabhupada talked about 5,000 temples, but Raman Reti was nothing but fields. No one there, nothing there, huh? Where Prabhupada put Krishna Balaram Mandir. But I remember on one morning walk, Guru Das is there. Of course, he was our first temple president in Vrindavan, first ISKCON temple president. Him and his wife, Prabhupada sent Jamuna and Guru Das there. And on this walk, as we're walking through Vrindavan, and Guru Das is pointing out, like if you go to Vrindavan now, you can go to the Welcome Center and get a tour. You can get a tour to the holy places. You know, you can get one devotee and he'll take you here and take you there and tell you what happened here, what Krishna did here, the cowherd boys. So I was on the walk, and Guru Das is saying to Prabhupada, oh, this happened here, and this person lives here, and this is going on here. And Prabhupada acted like he had never been in Vrindavan, and he's just, yes, oh, very good, very nice. And I thought, how kind Srila Prabhupada is. He knew all these things. On the one morning walk, he saw a vulture on top of a house. The house had a dome, and a vulture was right on the top of the house. You don't see vultures anymore in Vrindavan. You hardly see the hogs, peacocks around the temple because there's too much noise, too much traffic. But as soon as Prabhupada saw the vulture, he said, oh, he said, someone's going to die in that house. Just like that was it. As soon as he saw that sign, someone's going to die there. But while he was on the train, of course, stops, makes so many stops, went in Mathura. So again, Prabhupada knew. He knew everything, the train stops and all. So he said to his disciple, you go to the kachori wala. There's one man, he sells kachoris, very nice kachoris, cooked in ghee. He said, you get some kachoris. The train would stop sometimes 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, whatever it was. So the devotee runs out, he gets a bag of kachoris. And then he comes back, and they have their seats, and they have those little tables. Sometimes they're out all the time, sometimes they swing up. So the devotee gets some water, and he wipes down the table. He puts the kachoris there, opens up the little baggie, little newspaper bag, and Prabhupada's just sitting there looking at him. He puts the kachoris on the table. And then he gets down on the ground, on the floor of the train. That's not something you want to do very often, get on the floor of these trains. Anyway, he gets down on the floor and he starts chanting pranam mantras. Prabhupada says, what are you doing? He says, well, Prabhupada, I'm offering the kachoris. Prabhupada said, I'm right here. Oh, it's very important to have common sense in Krishna consciousness. When we offer anything, who are we offering to? We offer to our spiritual master. There's so many letters. Prabhupada describes the process. You offer to his spiritual master, he offers to his, he offers, and it goes all the way up to Krishna. And then it comes back down and we accept it as prasadam. And Prabhupada said, I'm right here. The necessity of prayers wasn't required. Just offer it to me. This was my good fortune being with Srila Prabhupada. Devotees, sometimes they would ask me, after you cook, did you offer it? And I'd say, yes. I'd say, I'd cook everything, put it on the plate, go into Prabhupada's room, sit it down on the table and offer it to him. He was here. When the spiritual master is physically present, it makes things a little easier. That's what he did for us. He showed us how to do everything. But we have to use our intelligence. Another time in New Dwarka, Prabhupada walked, very nice. Everything was first class, stainless steel pots, stainless steel counters, stainless steel everywhere. And Prabhupada walked in there one day. The place was always filled up with young men and women, brahmacharis, brahmacharinis, whatever, preparing all the offerings for the Lord. And Prabhupada went in, and he's going through, and then he stopped, and there was a colander filled with big red strawberries. In California, all the best fruits, and so many nice oranges, all the almonds, everything comes from this San Joaquin Valley it used to come from back then in California. So Prabhupada's looking and he sees the strawberries in the bowl. And he says, what is this? Of course he knew what it was. But again, you never knew when Prabhupada would say something what was going to happen next. He said, what is this? So the young girl, brahmacharini, she says, oh, Prabhupada, there's strawberries. He said, oh. So he picked one of the strawberries out of the bowl, and he has it. And she says, well, Prabhupada, that's boga. And Prabhupada went, oh. He threw it in his mouth. This is the person, Srila Prabhupada, that we're dealing with. He gave us all the examples of how to do everything. But sometimes he would show us his position. Very privately. He never made big announcements. He knew who he was. In Juhu, I told you, one of my favorite times was giving Prabhupada massage in the evening. Not even the daytime, noontime, evening. Because in the evening, Prabhupada's in his bedroom, and you're in there sitting or kneeling on the floor, and you're massaging his legs, massaging his feet. No one ever goes into Srila Prabhupada's bedroom at that time. So you're alone, just you and him. Sometimes he would speak to me, and I'd think, he's speaking to me. I was always amazed at how he would spend the time to say anything to me. And he would say so many wonderful things, huh? What was I saying? So he's there, and this was one evening in Juhu, very special evening. Many of the things you'll read in Lilamrita about Prabhupada's early years came from this conversation in Juhu while I was with him, giving him massage. And his Juhu in India, Juhu, Mayapur, they had their issues, big mosquitoes, always around. But for me, it was a bonus, because it meant I would put the mosquito net over Prabhupada's bed. Even when you put it over the bed, there were already mosquitoes inside that you had to somehow get out. But he would be under the mosquito net. So now, instead of sitting on the floor outside, I had to climb into the bed with Srila Prabhupada. So they were my favorite times. Literally sitting, it was like, I was a young boy, it was like camping with your spiritual master. And I'm rubbing, giving him massage. That evening, before he went to bed, take rest, get his massage, he rang his bell around 8 o'clock. So I ran in. Every evening he had hot milk. Every evening, hot milk with a little sugar. He never told me this much sugar, that much. I was talking with devotee yesterday, so I cooked for him many meals, I guess over 1,000 meals. He never once said, this is overcooked, this is undercooked, this is too spicy, this. Never said anything. Sometimes he would say it was nice, very nice, but he never criticized, which was very wonderful. Anyway, in the evening he called me in, because sometimes he would call me in 8 o'clock and say, make puris and potato eggplant sabji. So 9 o'clock at night, 9:30 at night, Prabhupada's eating puris, sabji, hot milk, rasgulla, like that. But this evening he called me in, he said, last night, he said, I had puri sabji. He said, but it made it difficult for me to get up and do my translation work. So we get up at midnight. So he was saying it affected how he got up at midnight to do his translation work. So he said, tonight, make muri. You all know muri, puffed rice and peanuts, chaunce, little hing, little turmeric, ghee, like that. And he would cut cucumber, put it on the side. So he said, make that tonight. Because he said puffed rice, he called it innocent. In other words, you can eat a whole bucket load. It'll just digest, you'll be fine. It's innocent, he said. I said, yes, Prabhupada. So that night he had puffed rice. So now I go into the room. Generally around 10 o'clock, he would take that evening massage. And like everything with Prabhupada, you did it until he told you to stop doing it. You had no independence. I'm seeing more and more all the time, I'm seeing how good it is to understand what it means to be Krishna conscious, what it means to be surrendered, to have some humility, to not have any ability to do anything on your own without permission. Myself and Kaladri, we were in Vrindavan in 1974, Janmashtami time. It was supposed to be the grand opening of Krishna Balaram Mandir, but they were nowhere near finished. It happened 6-8 months later on Ram Navami, 1975. We'll have the 50th anniversary in about 6 months or so, April. I think it's April 6, 1975. We're going to have a big, big 50th anniversary celebration in Vrindavan. You're all invited to come. It will be very special. Lots of programs going on. One day we'll be doing Julian Yatra. One day we'll be doing the boat festival. So every day there'll be different festivals for Krishna Balaram Radha Shyama Sundar Gaur Nitai. Anyway, in 1974, I told you, Prabhupada was very ill for 2 weeks. It was the first time we had 24-hour kirtan. Prabhupada instituted it at that time, 24 hours. He said all around the world devotees can chant. So that was the first time. So after a few weeks, he recovered. And then I got very sick, malaria. And then finally I recovered. While I was sick, my godbrother Kaladri, he was taking care of Srila Prabhupada. So after Prabhupada was better, then I was better, and Prabhupada rang his bell. I went into the room, offered obeisances. Always offered obeisances. Sometimes probably 30, 40 times a day, I would go into Prabhupada's room, offer obeisances. Just during his lunch, maybe a dozen times, in and out, bringing a little more dal. 1 chapati at a time, 4 chapatis, 5 chapatis, 6 chapatis. Every time I go in, slide it on his plate, offer obeisances. He never once said, "You've done it enough today, you don't have to do it anymore." Never said that. Duty was to offer obeisances. That's what you do every time you come. Srila Prabhupada's sitting right here. This is what I've come to understand. That's why I say, you don't sit anywhere, you don't stand between his vision of Radha Shyama Sundar. If you understand he's there, you would never stand in front of him and block his vision of Radha Shyama Sundar. So if you're standing there, it means you think it's just what is it? Whatever it is, clay, marble, plastic. But it's Prabhupada right there, just like deities, Radha Shyama Sundar, Radha Krishna, they're all right there. Prabhupada said they can talk to you. You talk to them. Huh? We know they would talk to Prabhupada, they would tell him things. I should go back and finish the story, but anyway, so I'm better, Kaladri's there, Prabhupada rings the bell, I go in the room, he says, "Get Kaladri." So I go back, I get Kaladri, now we both go in. We look like brothers, huh? Kaladri and I. We were very close. We offered obeisances and sat up, and Prabhupada looked at us. He said, "You look like 2 nice Brahmin boys." He said, "And you've been working so hard." He said, "Today, you should go to the Jamuna and spend the day at the Jamuna." We lived there. We had never been anywhere. We were only outside Prabhupada's room. That was our service. That was our attention, to be right there waiting just to hear the bell ring. But he said, "You go to the Jamuna." And we were like, "Yes, Prabhupada." We went to the Jamuna, we sat at the bank, we dug down, got the nice clay, we covered our bodies, and we just lay there. Just because Prabhupada said we could. Without him saying it, don't even think about it. Because if you do it, he's going to know, and he's going to let you know that he knows. I'm going off on another thing. In same place, Juhu, myself, Paramahamsa, Nitai was Sanskrit editor. So, as I say, being with Srila Prabhupada was very, very wonderful, but very, very intense. To be with a pure devotee 24 hours a day, when you're much less than a pure devotee, is not easy. Why did he have 12 servants in 10 years? Because it's not easy. to be with the pure devotee. So at that time, my god sister Palika, she was preparing Prabhupada's lunch. He liked her lunch. It's funny, the ladies that would cook for him, he would tell them, he didn't like this, this was wrong, this was wrong, this was wrong. With me, he never said it. I think he was just being kind. But to them, he would tell them, the dal's not right, this is not right, you know, this is too much, this is too overcooked. So she was cooking lunch. So after I massaged him, and then I would lay his clothes out on the bed, his kopin, and put the dhoti. Next to the dhoti was the kurta. I'd button 2 buttons on his kurta, fit over his head. He already had 2 buttons done. This is attentiveness. This is what it means to be attentive. Then I'd go to his desk. He had a tilak set. Had a little lota, size of a golf ball. Had a little lid, had a tiny spoon that went in it. Then he had the little katuri, silver katuri, a decorated one, fancy one, and his ball of tilak was in there, his chandan. It was also about the size of a golf ball. It would be round, and he would keep it round as he used it. And then, of course, so he'd get the spoon and measured. Everything was the same all the time. He'd take the spoon, however many drops would go in there, and then he'd put big tilaks up his arms. Every day, morning, noontime, same thing. Then he'd say Gayatri. So I'd set up his desk. I'd open up the mirror. He had a little compact mirror, you know, like had ivory carving on the outside and a picture of his spiritual master. Instead of makeup on the bottom, it was a picture of his guru. And then the mirror. So we'd open it up, hold it with the one hand. So all these things I prepared. Now, because Palik is making lunch, she brings him his lunch. And we're in Juhu. So it means there was almost an hour where I knew I didn't have to be there. This was a big deal. You had an hour to yourself. At least I thought I did. And then after lunch, he would take a nap. 20 minutes, half an hour, like that. So between his lunch and nap, me and my godbrothers, we went across the street, down the street, and you're right on Juhu Beach. Prabhupada liked Juhu Beach, nice and flat, sand. That's where we would walk every morning. So we were all Americans, all from the US. We're all about the same age. And the ocean was there. Of course, the sea in Juhu is not the prettiest, most attractive looking place, and the beach didn't look that good, you know, there was not regularly cleaning up. But us, just to be able to do something outside of Prabhupada's rooms, that was exciting. It was a relief of so much tension. So we started going to the beach, to Juhu Beach, every day while Prabhupada had prasadam and took rest. So we did this for some days, and we just sit there on the beach, and it's hot. You know, it's not even nice, but for us it was different. It was an escape. So after some days, Paramahamsa Swami, my godbrother, he says, I have too much to do. I have letters to type, respond to Prabhupada's letters, all these things to do. He said, so I can't go anymore. Okay, so now me and Nitai are going. So after another day or two, Nitai says, I don't have time to do this. He said, I have so much translation Prabhupada's giving me, the transliteration, word for word, all these things. He said, I can't do anymore. I was like, okay. So that didn't deter me, because for me, I was very happy just to do that for an hour a day. So I continued to do it for a couple of days. So then one day I walked back to Prabhupada's quarters, I go upstairs, I run into Paramahamsa. What does he say? Anyone remember? Prabhupada wants to see you, and he's really mad. He heard that you're going swimming at the ocean by yourself. He asked, he called for you. So of course they told him, oh, Shruta's, he's at the ocean by himself. You know, they couldn't say he's in his room chanting rounds of lie, or because we enjoyed, what we call it, you know, tattletaling on one another. We enjoyed it because it means we're not getting chastised, you are. So that was our pleasure, to see our godbrothers get chastised by, it means it's not me. My granddaughter said that once. A puzzle was being made and the puzzle got all messed up. I said, who did that? She said, not me. Because it was her. So I thought, oh, so I knew what was going to happen. I had been in this position before, being called in by Prabhupada. You know, you're in trouble. But you don't have any alternative. So again, I go in and I came beside him, you know. It was very intimate. I didn't come before him and offer obeisances. I literally walked in the door and offered obeisances beside him. And I sat up and he looked at me. He goes, yes? So now I'm confused, because usually you walk in the room and he just, you know, where were you? I've been calling you for hours. He would always say hours. But he just looked at me. He said, yes? I said, so now I have to think. So I'm always thinking how to maneuver with Prabhupada, you know, what to say, what not to say. You have to be very careful. So I said, Paramahamsa said you wanted to see me. And Prabhupada looks, he says, no. So I'm thinking, well, how to get around all of this without being in trouble or exposing myself. I said, you didn't call to see me? He said, no. He's playing with me. So then I had to come clean. See, this is what I say. You can't play with your spirit. You can't trick him. You can't hide anything. You shouldn't lie. You have to be very honest. The whole process of Krishna consciousness, you have to be honest. And when you're with your guru, your pure devotee guru, he'll show you that over and over and over until you understand. You can't hide. You can't hide from Krishna. You can't hide from Guru. You can't hide from Super Soul. You might think you're hiding somewhere in the dark doing something. You're not hiding from anyone. So I said, well, I had to say it. I said, Paramahamsa said you wanted to see me because you were upset that I was going swimming at Juhu Beach by myself. He said, oh, you were going swimming? He knew all of this. He said, oh, you're going swimming? I said, yes, Prabhupada. I said, we were all going together, but then they had service, so I said, but I kept going. He said, oh, that's very nice. He said, swimming is a Vaishnava activity. I said, thank you, Prabhupada. I offered my obeisances and I left. I never went back. Never went back again. That was Prabhupada. But he was very kind and again, very funny. Just toying with his children. We're all his children. He enjoyed us so much. And sitting there on the Vyasasam, when he sees you dancing, chanting and dancing, he becomes so happy. He would watch us. Sometimes he'd be playing the gong, usually kartos, but then he had his gong. He'd play. And when we were by there dancing, he'd just go like this. And in that way, he would make us jump up and down, just by his movements. And he'd just smile. So that evening, we're back in Juhu now. I made it back to Juhu under the mosquito net. And sometimes I'd be massaging Prabhupada's back. Sometimes he'd sit up, massage his back, and I'd see a mosquito, and I'd be, and I'd see one on him, and I'm like, right on Prabhupada's back. Once he said, that's okay. He said, it's described in the law books of Manu, an aggressor, you can defend yourself against an aggressor. So those mosquitoes, they were aggressive, huh? And so it was okay to defend. So then I became very happy whenever I saw a mosquito, it just poof, poof, everywhere. So then he started talking. Now he's lying down, I'm massaging his legs. And I told you, I never stopped. Sometimes you know that somebody's doing something, doing their service, doing their work, you start talking, and they stop. Didn't do that with Prabhupada. Your business is service, 24 hours a day. And as long as you're doing service, you're connected. If the service stops, your connection. What did Prabhupada say? I'm always with my Guru, following his instructions. That's how we live with our spiritual master. So then he's lying there and he says, my mother, she was first-class cook. She would make the puffed rice. There's a certain rice you buy and you puff it. And he described a big wok filled with sand, become very, very hot, and you put the rice in, like popcorn, it pops. Then you put it through the sieve, all the sand falls through, and you're left with the puffed rice. So he said, my mother, she would make the puffed rice. He said she was first-class cook. And then he just started talking about his childhood, like everything. And when he talked about his childhood, if he talked other people, he would take their character. He would talk like them. And he would just draw you in. So as I'm massaging, he starts telling me. He said, when I was young, he said, in the whole neighborhood, whenever there was festival day, he said everyone would come together, you know, like potluck. Everyone would make a different preparation and come. He said, my sister, she was also first-class cook. He said, my mother taught her, first-class cook. And then he said, I'm also first-class cook. He said, but I learned by watching. And he said that a few times, how expert he was. Just by watching, he would know how to do something. He said there was no training, no official training. He said just by watching. But he was expert cook, Srila Prabhupada. And then he continued. His father, Prabhupada's parents, he had a lot of love as a child. You want your children to become nice devotees? You be a nice devotee and you give them a lot of love. That's all you have to do. Set a nice example. He would talk about his father. He had a little Sheila, would keep around his neck. And his father would do all the deity worship. He said, that's how I learned. He said, everything we do here in ISKCON, I was doing as a child. He said, there's one thing, only one thing that I brought. What's that? Anyone know? His books. Books weren't. Everything else was there. The deity worship was there. Rath Yatra festivals were there. Chanting japa, everything. He did the same thing. He said, but the books, that was the one thing. He said, and Prabhupada also as a youngster, very determined, lots of determination. You couldn't say no to him. So he said, one evening, I said to my mother, I want puris and sabji. Like I was cooking 9 o'clock at night. And his mother objected. She said, no. She said, I'll make you muri, puffed rice, because it's innocent. You can have that late at night, no problem. And of course, not for Prabhupada. He said, no, I want puris. And again, now Prabhupada's telling me this. And again, my mother, she objected. I'll make you moody. I want puris. He said, then my father said, if he wants puris, give him puris. And then he said, perhaps my father knew. And then I just continued massaging. I didn't say, you had to know. See, Prabhupada would tell you as much as he wanted to tell you, not more. So that was letting us know, perhaps his father knew that this person was going to spread the Hare Krishna mantra all over the world. He said that a few times, perhaps my father knew. And then he said, he would go out, his father would take him out. And I'm trying to imagine Prabhupada being like this big and this big. And I'm trying, as I'm massaging him, this personality, this transcendental person. And he said once, he said we went out and went past the one and there were little toys. And he said, my father bought me this one toy. It was a cow. He said, and at the end, it had this thing and a little, he said, and you would press on the ball and the cow would jump. So he's just telling me about his childhood. He's just lying there. And he was like a child. I say, Prabhupada was childlike. He was so there was an innocence, a sweetness. Not the big acharya that everyone saw sitting on the Vyasasan. He was just this sweet, wonderful lover of Krishna as soon as he went back into his room. And then he said, one day we were out, and of course, he saw the guns. You all know the story of the guns. So he told his father, I want a gun. And his father was very accommodating, and he bought him a gun. So there's probably little metal guns back then. There was no plastics, right? No plastic around then. So I had a little metal gun. And Prabhupada had the gun. He said, then I looked in my other hand, and I wanted a gun for both hands. So he told his father, I want another gun. And of course, his father, no, you have one gun, that's okay. He said, I want one for each hand. And again, he said, my father said, no. He said, I became very upset. He said, I laid down on the ground and started banging my head and my hands on the ground. He's telling me this. He said, you see this scar? He said, it's from that time. That's what you call determination, huh? What are one of the qualities of a devotee? Determination. That's determination. You don't take no for an answer, even if you have to beat your head against the wall to do what you need to do. So this was Prabhupada. Huh? And then he said, then we were going down the street, and this is Calcutta. Well, Calcutta was the jewel of the British Empire at that time in India. So it was very beautiful, lots of ponds and parks with the little ponds in them everywhere. It was very pretty. But they're walking, and they went past a shoe store. He said, and Prabhupada said, I looked in the window, and there was a pair of shoes from England. He said, and I wanted those shoes. I told my father. He said they were leather shoes from England. Prabhupada was very excited. So his father bought those shoes for him. So he said every day, he said I would wear those shoes as I walked to school. Now you try to understand. You're with him. Still rubbing legs, touching, pulling his toes. Whatever I had to do, I'm just there listening. He said every day I would walk to school in those shoes, and I'm trying to imagine this wonderful person in front of me. As a child, little devotee boy walking to school in his shoes. And I saw him. And I said, Prabhupada, I said, when you were walking to school in those shoes, I said, would you look at your shoes? And he started laughing and laughing. Yes, he said, I'd be walking and I would watch my feet as I was going to school. Everything, so many things you'll read in the books. Prabhupada doesn't talk about himself. He gives us Krishna. We're the Hare Krishnas. We're not the Prabhupada Anugas. We're not known as Prabhupada Anugas, like so many other bogus gurus. You know, you had the Rajneeshis and you had this. All these groups were known by the name of their leader, but not Prabhupada. Krishna, Hare Krishna. Morning walks in Vrindavan. Now not so much. But in those days, everyone, every rickshaw wala, every sabji wala, everyone, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Radhe. It's all you heard in Vrindavan. And Prabhupada would be on his morning walk. Radhe Radhe. Prabhupada, what would he say? Hare Krishna. Never said anything other than Hare Krishna. Now, of course, it's even, devotees don't understand Prabhupada's heart. What he wanted, how much he wanted this Hare Krishna to be on the lips of every person in the world. How much he wanted that. So I saw Prabhupada walking in those leather shoes, he said. Anyway, I think it's almost, I finally realized class is supposed to be over 8:30. So we have time for one or two questions. Yes, Prabhu.
Either teenagers or in their early 20s and some stuff like that. If you were with, many of us are in different situations now, much older. We are not physically capable of the kind of exuberance that comes in your early 20s. So
you mean like what Prabhupada was doing in his 70s?
No, like offering obeisances in 50
like
50
Prabhupada
times.
was doing in his 70s, offering dandavats before the deities every morning. You never heard him. I do it when I get up somewhere. Move this way, move that way. No. He would outpace us on morning walks when we were 20 years old. We would be literally on Juhu Beach, we'd be walking and he had 3 different places he would stop. So those who were in his entourage, myself, Paramahamsa Nitai, Brahmananda, we'd be hoping he'd turn around at the first point. And if he didn't, we'd go, oh no, we're going further. Because however far he goes, you have to go back. So until he gets halfway there, you're still going far away. And then there's second place, and we'd be looking at each other. Oh, Jesus, it's a long walk this morning. Some devotees wouldn't go on the morning walk because they became too tired. I'll tell you one story. This is what I was going to talk about this morning, was sleeping. Sleeping. Maya. I was in Australia, and then we went to Fiji. So Australia's famous for one thing, milk products. Literally, we would get ghee from Australia to Vrindavan. Prabhupada wanted everyone to have nice cow ghee to cook in. So anyway, nice sour cream, clotted cream, all these things. So for us, as young boys, we liked it very much. So I would cook, and I would cook these very rich sabjis. And so one day, it's about 2 in the afternoon, and we're in Perth, Australia, just me, Paramahamsa, and 2 little young brahmacharis, Australian brahmacharis, brand new. And they were just happy to be there with Srila Prabhupada. And we're in the room and we're all sleeping like little babies from eating so much. We're very nicely sleeping. 2 in the afternoon. Eventually I heard a bell. And I mean, I was literally like dreaming. And I hear the bell. And I'm like, ugh, I know what I have to do. I get up off the floor, run into Prabhupada's room, and I'm offering obeisances. He didn't wait to see you. He's screaming at me. I've been ringing this bell for hours. He said, you're all sleeping like dead men. So then I sat up. He said, everyone's sleeping like dead men. He liked to use that word. We were like dead men. He said, the devotees, he said, sleeping very nicely. He said, the karmis. Prabhupada would call them karmis. Sometimes we refrain from, well, they're not really karmis. That's a special category. Prabhupada called them karmis. And he said, the karmis are all out working very hard for their sex life. But not the devotees. He said they're sleeping very nicely, like dead men. And then he said, get the others. And I'm like, oh no. And at this time I actually felt sorry. Usually I didn't feel sorry, but now I felt sorry for them because I know. And these are new boys, you know. So I went into the room and I woke up Paramahamsa. They're sleeping. I said, Prabhupada wants to see you. You're really mad. And then I went to these 2 brahmacharis, and I said, Prabhupada wants to see you. So they had big smiles on their faces. They didn't know what was going to happen when they walked into his room. So they're, oh, Prabhupada wants to see us. So we all get up together. What we say in English, a glutton for punishment. I always went into the room. I wouldn't like stand outside the door so I didn't have to get chastised a second time. I go right back in there because that was my service. That was my father. I had no choice. So we all go in and offer obeisances and get up. And Prabhupada says the same thing all over again. Everyone sleeping. He said like dead men. He said the same thing. Not the karmis, they're working very hard for their family, for their sex life. But the devotees, very nicely sleeping. And then he really got us. And everyone's just, he said, go on, go back to your room and sleep. And that was, we call that adding insult to injury. We're already completely fallen apart. You just want to kill yourself. Literally, you just want to jump into the Ganges or something, end your life. You've displeased your guru. Go on, go back, sleep. So we all, heads down, we walk back to the room. Now everybody's sitting, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. No more sleeping. And then the bell rings again. So I thought, oh, now what? I go back into Prabhupada's room, I offer obeisances. He said, call everyone in. So I went back. I said, Prabhupada wants to see you. So now they're not so excited. They think, oh, Prabhupada wants to see us. Now we're all, we say, walking on eggshells. We're all walk into Prabhupada's room. We all offer obeisances. And Prabhupada looks at us. He said, so we'll have class. How wonderful. He said, we'll have class. He looked at one of the boys, brahmacharis. He said, you get one of the books and read. So right behind him, there's a shelf with books. The only books on the shelves anywhere in the world were Prabhupada's books. He didn't have anything else on. There were no encyclopedias or magazines other than BTG magazine. Nothing, just his books. And while I was with him, every month it expanded, those books. When I was first with him, there was just first, second canto in that bookshelf. Then the third canto, the fourth canto, sixth canto, it just expanded. And then the entire Chaitanya Charitamrita. So the bookshelves were filled. So Prabhupada said, get a book and read. And he's looking at the one brahmachari. So what does the brahmachari say? Who knows? Which book? What does Prabhupada say? Any book. Any book. So devotee gets the book. We were frightened by Prabhupada. He gets the book. And what does the boy say? He looks at Prabhupada. Where should I read, Prabhupada? What did Prabhupada say? Anywhere. How fortunate are we? Just pick up any book, any page, and start reading. This is our fortune. This is what Srila Prabhupada gave us. He really didn't like us sleeping, especially in the daytime. I could go on and tell you so many stories, but it's time to move on. One more question. No. Oh, okay. You're monopolizing the question.
I never got to ask my question. The question was like, you know, when we are older bodies with our spiritual master, we cannot behave like the 20-year-old boys running up and down.
Why?
The body, I mean, everything is paining.
I'm 73 years old.
You're, I don't know, something.
At what point can't you do it anymore? That's what I'm asking you with a question. You asked me.
Even now, like I have pains all over, like all kinds of different pains. And
I'll just wait another 20 years and then you'll understand what it means to feel pain. My knees constantly bother me. Constantly. I can't sit cross-legged on the floor anymore. You'll find me sitting in the chair. Prabhupada said, devotional service only makes you more enthusiastic. You never get tired. So we have to understand ourselves. What do we have to do to come to that level? The next couple days we were in Fiji. And again, we're sleeping after flying so many hours. We struggled. Flying, jet lag, right? All these things are there. So again, Prabhupada rings the bell in the afternoon. It wasn't afternoon, it was like 10 in the morning. He said the same thing. He said, I've been ringing this bell. He said, why are you sleeping? I never gave an excuse. I learned first day, don't ever give an excuse. So I would just be quiet. And then, where's Paramahamsa? I said, he's resting. Call him. So then I went in and called Paramahamsa. Now we both go back in again. And I said to Paramahamsa, I said, Prabhupada wants to see you. He's really upset, really mad. We go in, we offer obeisances. And Prabhupada looked at Paramahamsa. Why are you sleeping now? What did Paramahamsa say? Prabhupada, I have jet lag. Prabhupada looked at him. You'd never say these things you're saying in front of Prabhupada. He would just crush you. Jet lag. He said, I'm also traveling. We would travel 20 hours. He'd arrive in Delhi 2 o'clock in the morning. 4 hours later, he's on a morning walk. We're exhausted, his 20-year-olds. Now you're talking about the youngsters, 30, 40. We're exhausted, and we're out on the morning walk. And if he didn't see you, like he did in Mayapur, where's this sannyasi? And somebody said, oh, Prabhupada, he's resting. He doesn't feel well. And I'm next to Prabhupada, and again, so I said, next to Prabhupada, I said, Prabhupada, he has morning sickness. And Prabhupada started laughing. You people, some of you know what morning sickness is, right? Related to as a woman, when you're pregnant, you get morning sickness. So I used that analogy. I said, Prabhupada, he has morning sickness. Prabhupada laughed. He said, yes. He said, if one doesn't come to the morning program, he said, no breakfast. And that was it. So I don't have an answer for you other than what you're saying does not apply to a transcendental person. It's only because you think you're this body. When I had first time malaria, it was in Ahmedabad. Been in India for 2 months. And it was the first time. I had never been sick like that in my life. 20 years, I never was so sick. I thought I was going to die. Anyway, we were staying in Life Member's house. They brought in a homeopathic physician, had his little black little bag. He opened it up, and there's all these little bottles with the same little white pills in them, all different descriptions. He gave me a few pills, I guess, and I got better. And later I went to Srila Prabhupada. I said, Prabhupada, I said, I've never been sick like that. I've never been so sick. Prabhupada looked at me. He said, really? He said, our position in this body is to be diseased. He said, to be healthy is very rare. He said, diseased is normal condition in the material world. But then later on, I understood what the disease was. What's our disease? We think this is us. That is the disease. The whole process of Krishna consciousness is to make you rise above that understanding. Spirit soul never gets tired. And we can't be artificial about it, but we have to strive for that position. One midnight, Prabhupada called Guru Kripa into his room at Krishna Balaram Mandir. He was in the guest house. Knocked at it. Guru Kripa, he's sleeping. We're all sleeping. So I said, Prabhupada wants to see you. Oh. We both go down to Prabhupada's room. Offer obeisances. Prabhupada looks at Guru Kripa. He's the person who basically funded the Krishna Balaram Mandir with his Namhata party in Japan. When Prabhupada looked at him, he said, well, what were you doing? Guru Kripa said, well, I was sleeping. Prabhupada said, why? He said, Prabhupada was tired. Prabhupada said, I'm not sleeping, I'm up doing my translating work. Guru Kripa said, well, Prabhupada, you're a Paramahamsa. Prabhupada looked at him, he said, why aren't you a Paramahamsa? Then Prabhupada said, all right, go on, go back, take rest. It's something you should realize we have to strive for. But these aches and pains, they're not going to go away. You get used to it. Get used to it. All right, we should stop here. Thank you all very, very much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. This morning, I don't feel good this morning. I have a cold, congested. I was thinking, well, maybe I shouldn't give class. No, that's not our program. You just do. You do, you do. You have to overcome. And then you get more rewards from Krishna. Not by surrendering to the body's demands, by ignoring the body's demands sometimes. Then you can make some progress. Okay, good luck. Hare Krishna. Thank you.